TIFU by helping my boyfriend explore his sexuality. I'm beginning writing this as the EMTs arrive. My BF hasn't had much experience exploring his sexuality until this year. Luckily, he met me, and I am all for the men's butt stuff, whatever. We've been experimenting with fingers here and there, and then I brought out my pink heart-shaped butt plug. Everything was fine. It was in him, jacked him off, nutted, washed up. Babe, where's the plug? What the fuck do you mean, where's the plug? He thought. I took it out. I sure didn't. Wasn't in the bed, not the sheets. Stuck my fingers in him, and sure as shit, the heart-shaped butt plug is deep. I am laughing hysterically from nervousness as the paramedics are coming. My boyfriend doesn't want to move in case it goes deeper, so he stays on the bed. 6 very attractive paramedics arrive to inspect him butt naked laying on his back in bed. They let us know just to relax and that we could go to the hospital on our own. My boyfriend waddles to the car. At this point, his leg and lower back is hurting. We were worried it had rotated and required surgery. We arrive at the hospital and get checked in. My boyfriend feels like he needs to shit after leaning forward and relaxing for a bit while waiting. He goes to the bathroom right after he is called back, and the little jeweled heart-shaped plug plopped right out of his gigantic asshole. Then the nurse tells us we aren't the first and instructs us on proper butt plug usage. Did you know that some plugs are meant to be held onto? TLDR stuck a butt plug in my BF's ass, made him cum so hard his ass swallowed plug, went to ER and shit it out. TIFU. When I, 18M, asked my parents for permission to have sex in my room. Better to ask for forgiveness than permission, I listened to Reddit and convinced my GF to sleep with me in my room when my parents were out of the house. My GF and I managed to get away with it, twice. The first time was easy. My mom was my dad's +1 at a business event that finished late enough for me to have sex in my own bed and cuddle afterwards. The second time was not that easy because my GF noticed all the mouse traps in our house during her first visit and became aware of the fact that we had an obvious mouse problem. Her fear of mice, which I never even knew she had, was bad enough to override her desire to have sex with me inside my house. I suggested an alternative. My dad's 1989 Toyota Corolla that was gathering dust in our garage. The car was no longer in working condition, but at least it was mouse-free. I checked. Instead of sheets, my GF and I had seats. In other words, we would still more or less have privacy since we were still technically at my house, but the risk of spotting Stuart Little's offspring was somewhat lower. My GF and I waited for another window of opportunity before getting naked in the backseat of my dad's Corolla. It was hot, literally. No aircon and none of the windows rolled down. Still had sex, though. Cut to the third time my GF and I hooked up at my house. The two of us agreed to do it in my dad's old car again. However, when we were done, we struggled to get out of the car because the one door that worked somehow stopped working. I was unable to open the door from the inside. My GF and I panicked. The clock was ticking. It was only a matter of time before my parents would be home. YouTube was no help to us at all. Out of desperation, I was tempted to break one of the car windows in order to escape. My GF begged me not to do that because A, it was dumb, and B, she was worried I might get hurt. My GF and I had an argument about whose fault it was that we were in that situation and what needed to happen to get ourselves out. The unpopular but logical option was to call the owner of the car, aka my father, and ask him what the cheat code was to escape. I didn't want to involve my dad at all, but it seemed like there was no other option that made more sense. So I made the call. My dad didn't answer his phone, which was a relief, not gonna lie. I switched to texting and sent him an awkward message asking if there was a trick to opening the door of his Corolla, because I was stuck inside. I expected my dad to text me back and ask what I did to end up trapped inside his car, which would have prompted me to lie. But deceiving my dad was pointless because his message made it clear that he knew what was really going on. How? Well, according to my dad, he realized his old car that used to smell like an old car suddenly smelled like sex. Part of me died inside. I wanted nothing more than to unread that message from my dad. In other news, the key to opening my dad's car was to push against the door as hard as possible before pulling the door handle, not the other way around. That was my dad's pro tip. It worked. My GF and I made it out of the car. I have no idea how I became the bad guy, but my GF was mad at me. She said she was done having sex with me in the woods. in my house, and in my dad's fucked up car. I didn't have the energy to argue anymore, so I accepted the blame for apparently everything before saying goodbye. I was in my room when my parents came home. I was too ashamed to show my face. I was feeling even more ashamed towards the end of the evening when I heard my dad argue with my mom about me. Based on what I heard, I assumed my dad probably told my mom about what happened in the car, and she lost her shit. I usually put on my headphones and drown out my parents whenever the two of them argue, but this time I chose to eavesdrop, which was another dumb decision of mine because I overheard my dad defending me by reminding my mom about the good old days when they were young and hooking up in the back seat of his '89 Toyota Corolla. The realization that I had sex on the same seats that my parents had sex on made my penis shrivel up inside my pubes and go into exile. On second thought, I decided to put on my headphones after all. All of the above happened in the past week or so. I'm planning to move out soon, so hopefully that makes everyone calm the fuck down about where I fuck. TLDR, listen to Reddit. Had sex at my house before deciding to fuck in my dad's old car. Car door stopped working. GF and I got stuck. Had to call dad. Dad told mom. GF got mad at me. Mom got mad at me. Dad got mad at mom for getting mad at me. I found out my parents had sex in the same car. TIFU by eating a whole bag of takkies whilst in the Dominican Republic. Obligatory, this happened last month. TIFU. I went on an all-inclusive adults-only holiday last month. Halfway through the holiday, I slipped when drunk on the wet tiled floor in my hotel room. I landed on a wooden cabinet in the room and cracked my ribs, confirmed by doctors, when I got home and no, this isn't the fuck up, haha. I was feeling sorry for myself and was in great pain for a couple of days, and then decided to drink it away. I had convinced myself at one point that my broken ribs would kill me and I'd never make it home, having spent an hour on WebMD. This is where the fuck up comes. We had bought a family bag of takkies from the hotel shop as we heard they were good and were from the UK, so had not tried them. We bought the chili and lime flavor, and in my drunken state, I laid in bed and ate the entire family bag. The next morning, I went to the toilet and I'd been suffering with dodgy bowels, likely due to the ice cubes. Well, that morning, my stools were bright red and the toilet water was bright red, and I had an immediate panic that my broken rib had actually punctured an organ and I had internal bleeding. I left the toilet with extreme anxiety, fast heart rate, and got straight into bed panicking, thinking about ringing for an ambulance. I eventually caved and told my friend I thought I was dying and explained what happened. After some panicking, we spotted some red speckles on the bed sheets, exact same color as what came out of my bowels. I then remembered I'd eaten takkies and got the bag out the bin and matched the speckles on the sheets to the flavoring on the crisps. I Googled it, and apparently it's a common thing for them to turn your stools red due to the amount of food dye used, haha. I felt instant relief and went straight out to the pool to enjoy the rest of my holiday. TLDR. Broke my ribs on holiday, ate a family bag of takkies and had what I thought was bloody stools. Convinced myself I was going to die and then found that it's common for takkies to dye your stools due to food coloring. TIFU. By showing Rule 34 art to my college class of 200 people. Obligatory, this happened yesterday. I'm studying accounting in school. I fell in love with the subject my freshman year after taking an intro class. Now in my second level of accounting, I resolved to dominate the class by participating in lectures, interacting with the professor, and so on. On Wednesday for homework, we had to essentially draw a diagram of the relationship between manufacturers, merchandising stores, and how their financial statements differed. We were told to have our drawings ready on Friday so we could add to them in class. I did this on my iPad using the Notes app. Friday comes along. Around 30 minutes prior to class, I'm in my apartment feeling a little horny, so I open the browser on my iPad and go to Rule 34 to find some art I remembered looking at a few days prior. After I'm done, I switch to the Notes app on my tablet, put it in my bag, and head to class. In class, I sit in the front row. Prof asks if anyone has completed the diagram assignment. I raise my hand. She then asks if she could use someone's as an example to explain to the class. Assured that I drew mine perfectly, I proudly offer my iPad to the prof, who puts it under the camera that displays to the entire auditorium. A few minutes in, as she's explaining balance sheets, She swipes her finger across the screen near the bottom to point to something in my diagram. Unfortunately, this switches apps back to the browser. Rule 34 art on full display to the class. Professor freezes and is silent. So is the class. My heart drops and the professor looks over at me and says, how do I go back? I quickly grab my bag, jump up, grab my iPad from the lectern, and walk quickly out of the auditorium. On my way out, I hear some murmurs and isolated laughter. All the way back to my apartment, my heart is pounding. Honestly, I almost cried. I couldn't sleep all night, and I never want to go to class again. TLDR. Professor uses a drawing on my tablet as an example to the class, accidentally switches apps to my browser, where I was looking at Rule 34. TIFU showing my date how to play games. A couple of weeks ago, I 19M hooked up with a girl 22F who had insomnia. We matched on Tinder. I thought the chemistry between us was great. Our first date was fantastic. I could see myself seeing her again. However, little did I know that our first date would eventually become our final date. When we were done having sex, she asked me to show her how to play games on my Xbox so she would have something to do during the night while I was asleep. I switched on my Xbox and showed her how to play. Unlike her, I was not an insomniac, but I did my best to stay awake and keep her company for as long as possible. I eventually fell asleep though. I woke up the following morning and realized she had been playing online games with one of my friends, 25M, who somehow managed to stay awake with her all night. A week later, she was playing games on his Xbox instead of mine. The two of them have been seeing each other ever since. TLDR. Showed my date how to play games on my Xbox. She ended up playing online with one of my friends and now she's dating him instead of me. Please like and subscribe for more daily content.